So the AI story is helping to fuel this in that we saw what it was like if you missed out on investing in NVIDIA early, and you don't want to miss it this time around.
Well, you're like, hey, there's a game chip designer. They're doing graphical chips. What can we do with this? You know, it's kind of a dead stock back in the day. And then suddenly, boom, GPUs and generative AI took them to the next level. And so the same thing's happening with quantum, and the advancements are moving very quickly. So what might have been a 20-year cycle has been compressed to a 10-year cycle. And we're now down to a 7-year cycle where we're going to see some gains. And investors are starting to realize something big is happening here, and they don't want to miss out.
Not that much news this morning, but there is some. In this U.S. lifting of the chip design software curbs on China as part of the trade deal. So you had these export license requirements for chip design software sales in China, and they're going away. And we've heard that and been confirmed by the likes of Synopsys, Cadence Design, Siemens as well. Synopsys said, we received a letter from the Bureau of Industry and Security of the Department of Commerce informing Synopsys that the export restrictions related to China have now been rescinded effective immediately. And you can see the impact. Not that great, but it's something.
It's huge. And I've got to tell you, these partners, they're number one. These companies, the number one partnerships are with NVIDIA. That NVIDIA does chips for them,
right?
And they do software for NVIDIA. So my question is, and I put this already to the CEOs, both Synopsys and Cadence, is where's NVIDIA? And Dr. Anirudh Devgan, who is just so, he's just terrific. He's the CEO of Cadence.
Yeah.
And then we have, I'm looking at, what was that?
Somebody dropped something.
That was disturbing.
Yeah.
But when you see Mr. Sasson Ghazi, he's Synopsys, and you say to yourself, are you kidding me? Do you really think that this is not going to lead to NVIDIA coming in? I mean, these companies are like this with NVIDIA. I spent a lot of time with GTC.
So you view this as a positive sign for NVIDIA's ability to go back to selling chips in China. Is that what I'm picking up here?
Well, I've got to tell you, I can't get it confirmed. I've already tried to get it confirmed this morning.
Because that would be, obviously, we talked a lot about the market there. Now, by the way, the Chinese are making their own chips, not as powerful, not as strong.
Not this
But they are certainly not quite matching our own, but they are very competitive in AI overall.
But when it comes to Cadence and Synopsys, they are nowhere.
Interesting.
Yes.
Right. Now, we should point out, again, back to the trade agreement that was, remember, they had it in Geneva, then they reached it, then they kind of reached it in London. Or was it, I always forget which.
I don't know, but Lutnick's going to have to deliver on this.
Right. And so now we hope also that they're delivering on the rare earths.
Right, but this is to me,
again,
to me,
they were not really delivering on as they were supposed to have after the initial discussions of a deal.
You give them Cadence and Synopsys, you're giving them NVIDIA. NVIDIA is better. NVIDIA, look, they're the software for the hardware. There's NVIDIA. You can't make the big Blackwell chips without these companies. That's the latest and greatest NVIDIA. So I think it's logical to assume that maybe something is brewing with NVIDIA. I don't know. But you're getting a lot of NVIDIA if you let in Cadence and Synopsys.
It's a big call.
You're getting a lot of their stuff. They're hand in glove. And I don't think people seem to realize this.
Okay.
I only know it because Jensen told me to interview them. I interviewed them. They were fantastic. They were great companies.
Right.
We have some amazing companies in this country that we don't salute. And those two CEOs I mentioned are brilliant guys.
Okay. This morning, this is as the U.S. lifts export controls on chip design software to China. Who are the companies that play here? Cadence Design, Synopsys, Siemens also getting a lift. Joining us now to discuss, More Insights founder and chief analyst Patrick Moorhead. Patrick, obviously we can see it's good for some of these names. Is it a conclusion that they will be beneficiaries from now going forward?
It certainly is not. It certainly is a good thing today. And I think we all hope that we can get the trade challenges with China completely closed, but I think this is going to be a little bit of a long road. I do feel very comfortable, though, about these stocks in that the quid pro quo, the mineral rights versus EDA software tools, that's pretty much been put to bed. Unless the wheels fall off in an overall trade deal with China, I think things are looking pretty good for them.
Right. So they're going to be much better on the rare earths, and now they're getting this in return. Anything else implied here? I think, Jim Cramer earlier was at least hoping perhaps that the next step would be NVIDIA chips being able to enter the market again in a more significant way. Is that a fair assumption, or is that just hopeful thinking?
I think it is getting warmer. I think the chill is still there. I do not think that NVIDIA will ever be able to sell their highest end chips, but I think that's okay. They hadn't been selling their highest end chips for years, but at least getting a tuned down version of Blackwell, I think we should be optimistic about that moving forward. And every step that we take and any agreement that we can do with China, I think bodes well for all markets, not even technology markets related to China.
But what about all the security concerns? The whole reason we had these controls in the first place. Don't you have concern? I mean, Cadence is a big partner with NVIDIA.
Yeah, they are, and I think a tuned down chip, meaning a chip that might be 20% of the capabilities that a leading edge NVIDIA chip, the amount of work they can get done, I think ultimately they can get it done, but they can also get it done with Huawei. And I think the last thing we want is to be funneling Chinese companies who want tuned down NVIDIA chips to be funneling money to a Huawei that can essentially use it to build even bigger chips and someday potentially be more in competition with NVIDIA. I think it's a good play to have them close, not completely hugging each other, but at least keeping our quote unquote enemies close to us.
Well, on that note, Patrick, I mean, do you think this is a kind of question more about the last decade across multi-administrations? Has the policy of containment worked?
I can argue both sides. What's happening is because China has an unending supply of energy, and they found a way to pull together lower performing chips and just throw more chips at the same problem. In a sense, it has not. And if we look at the innovation funnel, now DeepSeek that work was done flat out on NVIDIA H100s or H200s. So our ability to contain it so far has been a complete failure, and either chips have gotten through or Chinese have been using cloud services in different countries, or China has just thrown more energy and more chips at the same problem. Nothing has worked so far, and I'm skeptical that it ever will.
Could tougher export controls on advanced AI processors from NVIDIA and AMD also face similar reversals as trade negotiations progress? Unlike Cadence and Synopsys, AMD and NVIDIA don't produce EDA software. That's what it's called, electronic design automation. So today's announcement doesn't directly impact them. NVIDIA's H20 AI chips designed specifically for the Chinese market to comply with prior export controls still remains restricted, as do other advanced AI processors. And we know Jensen Huang and other tech CEOs have been very vocal about the restrictions, wanting them to be reversed. Still, this swift policy flip reinforces President Trump's pattern of using tech restrictions as negotiating leverage rather than permanent policy tools, especially given how intertwined these supply chains are. I reached out to NVIDIA, seeing maybe by chance if they happen to hear anything. They said no, but we know that they've been working, and there's been a lot of travel to DC over the last couple of months to try to reverse those export controls, specifically against AI accelerators and GPUs. Guys?
Is this a top area of concern for the Chinese, Christina, that's likely to then lead to significant agreements, significant progress on the rest of the the trade deal? Is this something they're going to celebrate, or is it kind of a footnote?
They've already received a lot of this equipment. So the EDA software, China has been receiving it for quite some time. This ban was only put in place for 6 weeks. So is it a moment to cheer? Yes, because this software is so important to build more advanced chips from the likes of, let's say, Huawei. So I guess Huawei would be the one cheering, but overall, I don't know if it's necessarily a major win, given they still want access to the more advanced chip technology that would be coming from NVIDIA as well as AMD. That is really an important part of this equation, but that could, as we're seeing the reversal from President Trump, it could change in the coming weeks or so, given this 90-day pause with all the tariffs and further news that we should be expecting soon on this chip front.
Well, I do think it signals that things have thawed a bit and that there's obviously been a negotiation here. China is going to speed up the licenses of the rare earth magnets, right? And in exchange, U.S. is going to lift these countermeasures, and one of them was export controls on chip software.
Yeah, so wouldn't President Trump say this is a major win, right? Because China is moving ahead with the rare earths, which is really not only important for chips, but so many electronics coming from the United States and necessary for that matter. So I'm sure this is considered a win. But on the administration's part, we don't want China to receive the most advanced technology, but you have the chip makers that say they're going to move forward regardless, so the United States may as well be part of that equation. It's still unsure how the Trump administration is going to take up that stance. Are they going to agree with the chip makers and say they should, no matter what, just be part of the equation, drop those restrictions, or continue to really put I guess a block on China moving ahead? But it seems like they're already doing pretty well. Huawei's advanced chips are quite impressive, more advanced than the H20s from NVIDIA. CoreWeave, let's talk about that, just scored a major win, becoming the first company to get Dell's new server system running NVIDIA's latest Blackwell AI chips. It's a big deal because it shows how CoreWeave is becoming a key player in the cloud space, essentially renting out super powerful computing to companies like OpenAI that need it to train their AI models. Dell's also riding the AI wave with clients like Elon Musk's xAI, and that's why you're seeing CoreWeave stock up over about 5% and Dell up almost 2%.
All right, I hope you're all doing great today. NVIDIA reached another all-time high in today's trading session and finished the day about 1.3% higher. There are two pieces of NVIDIA news today. First, CoreWeave announced today that they have deployed the first NVIDIA GB300 system. This is NVIDIA's Blackwell Ultra and it is launching ahead of schedule. NVIDIA originally guided for Blackwell Ultra to launch during the fiscal third quarter. Then Jensen told us at GTC Paris that GB300 was completely in production. Then there were some reports that it may launch sometime in August or September. But now here we are with official confirmation of the first GB300 deployment from CoreWeave. Blackwell Ultra appears to be slightly ahead of schedule, and it should ramp very quickly, especially starting in August and September. Blackwell Ultra is essentially an upgrade of the chips within the Blackwell system, and it is not a complete system overhaul like Blackwell was. This means we are substantially less likely to see delays in the rollout of GB300 like what we saw with the GB200 Blackwell systems. And that is very good news. Also today, we got news of the US rescinding curbs on exports of chip design software to China. Although this is not a reversal of the H20 ban to China, it is a positive sign in that direction. According to Reuters, an unnamed source said that we're going to see a lot of restrictions go away, going back to a status quo where we were at back in February and March, and that we may see restrictions on some other items be lifted in the future. So we'll see what happens with the H20 ban to China. As a reminder, NVIDIA has completely removed all China revenue from their forecasts. NVIDIA guided fiscal Q2 revenue at $45 billion, and they would have guided for an additional $8 billion if there were no restriction on H20 sales to China. And so if we do at some point get news of a reversal of the H20 ban to China, I would expect NVIDIA stock to trade meaningfully higher on such an announcement, as that would be many billions of dollars in revenue that analysts are not including in their current estimates. Regardless of what happens with the H20 restriction, the good news is that NVIDIA is still growing because demand is just so strong. Additionally, sovereign AI deals in regions like the Middle East and Europe can offset what NVIDIA is missing out on in China. Jensen told us at GTC Paris that there are currently 20 sovereign AI factories being planned in Europe and that some of them are very large. He also told us that there are many other AI factories being planned by European companies, and Jensen believes Europe's computing capacity will 10x in just 2 years. It would not surprise me if we get news of more sovereign AI deals from other parts of the world as the year goes on. While I don't know what will happen in the short term, I continue to be bullish on the long-term future of NVIDIA, and I seriously think that this company still has a lot of runway ahead of it. Blackwell has ramped swiftly, and Blackwell Ultra should ramp even faster. After Blackwell has ramped, we should see margins return to the mid 70% range late this fiscal year, as NVIDIA forecasted. We have a clear data center product roadmap that stretches all the way into 2028. In 2026, we should start to see shipments of NVIDIA's next-generation Vera Rubin. The Vera CPU will be NVIDIA's first ever custom CPU built to work in lockstep with the GPU. And the Rubin GPU will, of course, provide substantial improvements compared to Blackwell. NVIDIA maintains their competitive moat across the entire stack, both hardware and software. And NVIDIA software offerings in CUDA is a massive advantage for NVIDIA, as it is widely recognized and the go-to choice for many developers. I think that NVLink Fusion actually strengthens NVIDIA's competitive moat, as it increases the likelihood that customers will remain within NVIDIA's ecosystem. NVIDIA is delivering performance upgrades that are so substantial that their customers have no choice but to continue purchasing NVIDIA's latest products in large quantities. NVIDIA is bringing AI to the world's enterprise IT, which Jensen believes is an opportunity worth hundreds of billions of dollars. NVIDIA has massive sovereign AI deals both in the Middle East and Europe, and NVIDIA will play a crucial role in the future of quantum computing. Jensen told us at GTC Paris that NVIDIA is working with just about everyone in the quantum industry on NVIDIA's CUDA-Q platform, and that the next generation supercomputers will have a QPU assigned with QPUs connected to GPUs. Just as NVIDIA used their GPUs to speed up CPUs, they're now going to do the same thing with QPUs. Jensen thinks that the world's computing capex will reach $1 trillion annually by 2030. If he is correct, then NVIDIA should be worth substantially more in the years ahead than it is today. Remember to stay calm in this market. Remember to maintain a long-term perspective and do not make any hasty or irrational decisions. With all of that being said, I hope you all have a great rest of the day, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts about NVIDIA in the comments below. Please leave a like on this video so more people will see it. And while you're down there, please consider subscribing. It's free, and you can always change your mind. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.